Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 131, WorkDrive on OverDrive. It's recorded on Friday, January 29th, 2021. From Zenata Consulting, I'm Brett Martin.
And I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
All right, we'll start with our announcements. So we've got a bunch of webinars coming up. So when is the second? Tuesday, I guess. On Tuesday at 10 a.m., we're actually doing a webinar with Zoho, connecting your CRM and finance workflows and automations. We're going to talk about basically some cool little tips and tricks that you can do using basic automations, as well as using some nice scripts that we use a lot internally here. So you can tune in for that. You can go to our website, actually go to CRM Zen, click on events, and you will be able to register for it there. And then we're going to kind of go over, we're going to do our actual February webinar on the 16th, which is CRM 2021. We'll basically be a little different than the one we did last year, where we went through kind of overview. I think we're going to focus, yes, the key core features, but really a lot that changed over the last year and kind of the key components that changed. If you listen to our original CRM webinar from last year, we had all kinds of audio quality issues. So anyway, it was
good to redo that one.
Yeah, so it's not too bad an idea to redo that. Anyway, go to crmzen.com, click on the events menu, and away you go. Everything is there, as well as a whole bunch of other upcoming events from Zoho. We're starting to see Zoho events, some partner events. People are starting to schedule their events. So we're getting them on that events calendar. So let's get straight into the news, and boom! We start off with a brand new Zoho application, the first one of the year. Well, I don't know what my Zoho IQ is or my sales IQ, but now I got my RouteIQ, baby.
This is a new application here. I think it's really designed to tie into the CRM. And the goal is to, basically create routes for your sales team. So if you have sales teams out in the field, right, this is a way for them to say, hey, grab me these accounts that are in this, CRM custom view and plot them out on a map with a route for me. It's kind of a nice little plugin. I mean, we've worked with a couple other tools that do this, Badger Mapping, Mapsly. It's kind of the big two that we touch a lot, but always nice to have a Zoho version. I would love to see, this will just be for routing at first, but territory assignment would be very, very cool. I know that's one that Mapsly does pretty well. It'd be nice to have it inside of Zoho.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. And, mobile's big for this. So, there's an Android APK, which means you're side loading the current Android version, and iOS isn't really out yet. I installed it, played around with it. It's kind of cool. You basically, as you can see, it adds it as a tab directly inside the CRM. What you can, and I have not really played around with it, but you start an end date and a route, and you link it to a custom view in contacts or leads. So you can have these various custom views, then you can add your routes, and it's going to map it. I haven't had much of a chance to play with it, but it's kind of strange because it's a plugin, but it's an app. And so it's in the marketplace, but it's kind of not, but it is out there and it is live and worth playing with, I think. But you're right. We've never had any of these that are really great, would you say? We've looked at the others. They've been okay, especially for a lot of, we've got clients that have delivery services where they're doing a route and they're kind of going around and they want to plan this whole thing out. And there are a lot of pro grade tools for this. And at the end of the day, we've tried out Maps, we've tried out the others, and they're close, but they don't have that check in, check out, all the kind of functionality that these real routing softwares have. So we'll see. This is kind of surprising. I guess that they just decided this was something they wanted to build themselves. Even though
I would think, what I would imagine is they're probably looking at their marketplace, and I know the Badger Maps and Mapsly get installed a lot. Yeah, as those are kind of the ones that do solve this need now. So I could definitely see a use case for this with Zoho. Interesting though that it's CRM, not Bigin, being that it's mostly going to be mobile. I would imagine where people are going to use this. So I'll be interested to see if this rolls out for Bigin as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we see that.
Well, I think there's two things, right? I mean, think of it as general sales calls, sure, but nobody's doing sales calls these days. And, I think most people that want this, it's always for like a milkman kind of thing. We've got a delivery route and we're always constantly going and stopping. We've got a client that has a, really hot propane delivery service. They've had it for a while, right? This is like one of those things. You need the lasso effect, which they've got here. You need to rope this in. You need total route optimization. They're using Google Maps here. So, which will be kind of interesting, because I think then you can get some logic around route optimization based on real-time traffic and all of that kind of stuff as well.
Interesting. They're not using Zoho Maps, which is a service that I always forget exists, but they actually do have their own mapping service.
Yep.
I'm happy they use Gmail or Google because I'm a big fan of Google's routing. I find that it's the best for me. So good that they're plugging into that and using best in class in terms of getting you from point A to point B.
Yeah. But anyway, it's going to be cool. We'll try it out. I'm sure it's going to grow a lot. I guess it's in beta right now, but we will see. All right, moving on with the Zoho news. This is a really, really, really cool one. The undo redo buttons are now in campaigns. So, which if you don't know, it used to be if you made a change, like you deleted something in campaigns, you're like, oh, Control Z to undo. No. You couldn't undo it. There was nothing you could do once you deleted something. So, yay.
Yep. This is one of those, what do we call them? Things that you thought were there.
Yeah.
Thought we already had that. But this is actually one that we did know wasn't there. We get asked about this every now and then. And it's definitely a need to have, right? I mean, when you're making little design adjustments, you might actually bump something off axis or misalign things. And needing to fix those manually can be a little bit of a pain. So this is a good one.
Just absolutely crazy. I mean, this is anyway, really, really happy. And guess what? They are supporting Control Z and Control Y. So woohoo. Good news. Many, many times I have accidentally deleted something in campaigns and lived to regret it. And then this was, I probably would have taken this out. We actually had virtually no news this week whatsoever. And then we kind of had a whole rush of it that hit this morning. But the blog post kind of published an entire Zoho Mail year in review, where they kind of went through everything that they did over 2020 and the growth of it and kind of all the changes. Not much here, but it also gives me a chance to talk a little bit about Zoho Mail. So I went all in last week, Tyler. Finally got the IMAP. I will tell you that a couple of things we got to, I've talked to Zoho and I think they're working on this, but when you originally set up your account and you turn on Zoho Mail, it maps your domain to Zoho Mail, even though you're maybe not using it, you've got another service. So if you want to use IMAP, you really have got to go in and delete the domain, and it will let you. So you kind of got to put a fake domain in and make that default, then delete the other domain.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a process.
There's a process to get IMAP set up. But once you go through that, then there's a process to just generally get the IMAP connection with Gmail. It's kind of strange. They have probably the best, Zoho has some of the best support for Gmail, period, bar none. It's just fantastic. Integration into CRM, integration into other apps. The applications that they've written for Gmail proper are just great. And normally when you go to set up, like if you're in CRM, you want to set up Gmail, you just click the Gmail button and it knows what you want. It does everything. That button is missing on IMAP. It does Office 365 and some others, but for some reason not Gmail. So you have to manually set it up, and it's a challenge. It's a challenge. If you've got TFA turned on, it requires, it requires an application specific password.
Yeah.
That doesn't work. There's an issue. And of course, then you have to go in by the way,
to allow unsecure apps as well. So Gmail, because they're not going through a conventional connection, Gmail identifies Zoho Mail as unsecure, even though it's not. It's connecting through TLS. It's using all the best practices.
Absolutely.
But,
yes.
Google has a little vendetta there and does not like Zoho Mail when you try to plug it in.
Right.
Just a couple little oddities.
And you have to turn off TFA. At the end of the day, after just banging my head against the wall, I had to turn off two-factor authentication on my Google account in order for it to work. So I ended up putting in like a 50 character massive jumble of generated password and figured, okay, we'll go with that. But once I got that, and now that I've been living in it, I am loving it. I mean, it's nice. And although, yes, you've got great plugins across the board for Gmail, you don't necessarily have them for Outlook. That's kind of a missing thing, man, when you're living in Zoho Mail proper, it's it's not a bad experience. So I'm thinking, we keep going back. I think this will be a thing. This will be the best of both worlds for everybody. They can live in whatever they want to live in. But anyway, I'm liking it. So how do you like? I really pushed that story out, huh? I got the most out of that one. All right, and moving on in Zoho news. Holy shamoly! WorkDrive on OverDrive. The WorkDrive team went crazy this week. 4 pretty big updates to WorkDrive. We talked about it, Tyler, but this just keeps getting better and better and better. Let's start with the first one.
Yes, this is they've now added custom domain support. So, in the same way that if you're using Zoho Desk or Zoho Connect, you can kind of white label it. So it might be like desk.zoho.com or desk.zenata.com for us. They're now allowing that inside of WorkDrive. So we could make a documents.zenata.com, which given all of the abilities to add client users and share things publicly, being able to white label that is actually really, really nice. Something that we'll probably do ourselves here.
And we are in the process of migration right now.
So we're finally doing it. Happy to be doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a nice one. I mean, we do have a lot of clients who do use WorkDrive externally, and one of the things I'll highlight here is that it changes your domain for your internal users, but also if you pull just external share or external download links, those are also going to be white labeled. So that's really, really nice. They kind of went the whole 10 yards on this one, and across the board, any of your links are going to come out with your custom domain.
Yeah, just really, really slick. And then we have WorkDrive Genie, quick editing app for the desktop, which is in beta. And I have not played with this. There's a couple of things around this. They changed the synchronization. So I didn't even get a chance to look at this one. So what's the idea here the desktop app?
Yes, this is basically like if you've got the local WorkDrive, and this is mostly on Microsoft. I don't believe there's an equivalent for Apple right now. But if you have that local WorkDrive setup, you basically can use the Genie to edit the web version of a file just dynamically from your local system. Right. So it's basically just allowing you to push updates a little bit easier to the web versions while you're working locally.
Got it. Only for Windows. It's the dreaded exe file, but I think that's nice. And then this kind of ties in. This is really interesting. They have you can now share files and folders with WorkDrive support. So I'm thinking this is interesting because you could always share, but this is kind of a temporary thing. So if you want to share with support, after 7 days, the access is going to go away, but you can say, hey, there's some really wonky formatting errors in this document. I'm seeing this, I'm seeing whatever you're seeing. And how nice. You can just share it with them and say, take a look at what I'm seeing and fix those bugs. And then after 7 days, it goes away.
Yep.
I think you can set those kind of parameters on a general share, but I think this kind of tightens it up a little bit for support.
Yeah, and this is particularly for support. I mean, Zoho with their general commitment to privacy and data security.
Yeah.
And in a handful of applications, the support team cannot by default actually jump in and see all of the data and see everything that's going on. So for example, Zoho Analytics is like that. You have to share a workspace. Because you just have so much data in there and you could have your financials, everything running through analytics. It's the same inside of Zoho Flow. You have to share the organization to support for them to really be able to dig in. This is kind of just a similar thing, right? I mean, if you've got some files inside of WorkDrive and you don't want to regularly just have those shared out and you want to protect them as much as humanly possible. Not that we're really concerned about Zoho's employees, but it's just another layer of security to be able to say, hey, I need some help with WorkDrive, but you can't see this folder. I just need help with the stuff that's in, this folder over here.
Yeah. Good stuff. And then the biggest update, the one I'm totally excited about, is they completely have changed their, this isn't the one I was looking at. Is this the synchronization? No, this is a different one. So I guess we're missing one here, which is interesting. So this is nice. You can basically have your follow updates. So you can, import follows, follow updates, anything that's happening on a file, you can follow it, get notifications when, some file changes are being made, which is nice. But what should be here that I'm not seeing is that you've got a whole new synchronization application that is just extremely, extremely cool. Basically, right now, if you were using the Zoho WorkDrive application for Mac or Windows, it's a full synchronization. You set it up and it's basically synchronizing everything that's WorkDrive is being synchronized to your desktop. And that was a really, really, that's kind of a big issue. But what they released this week is you've got this ability for, let me see if I can find it here. Well, I have to find it. Anyway, I put the link up somewhere. You basically now have the ability to install a brand new beta application, and this brand new application will allow you to look into WorkDrive real time from your desktop, see it in a standard folder, and actually access things directly, even though they don't exist on your desktop. So you're basically can see everything, bring it in, open it in various things. So you've got the full, so it's giving you got 2 terabytes sitting up on WorkDrive, but you've only got a 200 gigabyte hard drive. You can still have access to all 2 terabytes locally on your drive. It's just going to swap things out and download them as you need them in real time. Brand new application and, pretty, I got to say, pretty cool across the board. Let me see if I can find out where I found that.
Is that a WorkDrive Genie?
I don't think so. Was it? Is that what
Maybe
the WorkDrive Genie
allows us
was?
to download, go local.
No, this I'm talking because I was actually able to download the version this morning for iOS.
Got it.
It can't be that, but it's. Let me find it here. I think announcements, show more. It was something brand new today. Fun, boom, boom, boom. So many updates. Well, I don't know, guys. Maybe I'm losing my mind, but I did download the file this morning. So we'll find that. If I do, I'll post it up in the newsletter. But pretty cool. All righty. And then moving on, what can I say, Tyler, but Sridhar Vembu? Oh, yeah. So the Zoho founder and CEO, Sridhar Vembu, has been awarded the Padma Shri Award, which is very similar to our Presidential Medal of Freedom in India for kind of his contribution to trade and industry. Which, it's a pretty big deal. And I think, there's just a ton of articles around this. He clearly is humbled, but, he's over there doing, if you think about it, I mean, he's a super big deal over there in India. He's doing a whole lot for the country, from education to, helping local communities to, basically his whole what do you want to call it? Ruralification of technology by building all these things out. So congratulations, Sridhar. Super nice. Super nice to see this.
And it's well-deserved. I mean, they take their sophomore platform and the way that they've kind of organized the company around it, I think does a lot of good. And this is well-deserved.
Yeah. So we wanted to throw that out, little shout out to Sridhar there. And that brings us to our implementation of the week, which is solving a problem that we see all the time, man.
Yes, this is kind of one that we bump into a lot, and it's a kind of around round robin assignment for the CRM. So there's no pre-built round robin functionality that comes out of the box when you sign up for a CRM account. There are 2 plugins on the marketplace. One of them being one from Zoho, which is pretty limited. It doesn't even trigger on like form inputs. You have to manually create leads for it to trigger. So it's kind of been a no-go. And then there's another more advanced round robin tool, which is pretty solid. It's built by, I believe, Nuanced IT, right? Jeremy Nagel. It's a pretty good application. Issue with it is just that it's not quite as customizable as you may need, where in essence, you're able to say, 20% of leads go to this person, 30% go here, and the other 50% go to our last user, and it's going to automatically assign them that way. We had a need that was a little bit more custom, and it was working with the client who has a couple different physical locations. And when they're capturing these, prospects, they're identifying them based on, the form that they filled out or an option that they choose as prospects for a specific location. And for this client, the way that their assignment works is that, every prospect at each location is assigned to whoever at that location received, their most recent prospect is oldest, right? So we're basically just assigning from the bottom, they get the next one, and so on and so forth. And so basically what we did is we organized the users into roles based on those locations. So you'd have, location A, sales rep, location B, sales rep. And then when their prospect form is submitted, we basically route it through Zoho Flow to run a custom function that will go ahead and check all of the different prospects that have come through for that location and who they were assigned to. And then basically what we're doing is for each of those people, whoever's newest prospect is the oldest gets assigned as the new owner of the prospect that just came through. So the kind of advantages to this is, we're able to make it location specific. So we don't have to have everybody in the same, rotation. And because it's a function, we can really expand on it. So the next step for this function is going to be also making it specific based on the source. So they kind of want to have rotations be a little different based on the type of lead that's coming through to make things as fair as possible so people are getting the same quality of leads. It's basically a little function that's just running in flow basically between the form and the CRM to just run this logic, get all the users in that location and figure out who should be next for the new prospect.
So this is really cool. So one of the other things we've had come up, and you can't really do it, but I think you can now, which is when you have live sales teams and something comes in and you want to assign it. Now that Zoho has the check-in, check-out, which is really going across so many different applications now, right? Where you're available, you're unavailable kind of thing. Is that something have you checked? Can we look that up through API with Deluge and say, actually the person is available and kind of handle some lead routing, real-time lead assignment based on whether or not they're available right now?
Talking like the Cliq remote work or Zoho people?
Well, they're the same, by the way. So if you check in and Cliq, it checks you in people. And if you check in people, you check in and Cliq. And so I'm starting to see it across more and more of the applications now. It'd be interesting to see if that's the case, if we actually can just ping if a person's active and then do some lead assignment around that. That's really taking it kind of to the level where, especially bullpens where they got leads coming in real time, they want someone to call them back immediately and you assign it to somebody who's off that day, right? Yeah. And most of the other assignment apps require that you set your hours when you're there, when you're not, but that really doesn't take into account somebody who calls in sick or anything like that.
Yeah.
Or changing hours. So.
Yeah, we could take a crack at it. I've not hit, because really it would be Zoho people. So you'd be hitting the Zoho people user and then trying to see their attendance data. I've not tried it before. It's worth taking a crack at. For this use case specifically, they don't care if someone's there or not. It's really just a flat, rotation, because they're always going to have to follow up with these anyways. It's not like we sell them today type of situation. Okay. Yeah, we could definitely take a crack at it. We could definitely get that Zoho people user. The question is, do we get the data of if they're in or out?
Yeah, that'll be cool. All right, so I found what I was talking about. So before we move on to our read of the week, this is actually in the Zoho blog. They have a brand new TrueSync application. So another big WorkDrive. I mean, just crazy WorkDrive this week. So it's a brand new TrueSync, and it's downloaded it, put it on my laptop this morning, and it is for both iOS and Mac. And it's great. It's great. It solves a big problem. So the end of the WorkDrive palooza right there.
Oh, so it's almost like is it just iframing or just embedding WorkDrive, kind of like how they do Cliq on a local app? So you're basically just accessing the cloud files through an embed. Looks almost like the UI for it.
Well, the way they're doing it, right? Maybe. So you think it's just giving you
basically the browser embed, because that's what they do for Zoho Cliq. It's a great idea. I would download it. You know me, I love everything as apps on my computer. I don't like using the browser if I don't have to.
Yeah. It looks like for me, it's running though just as you would have like the Google and the old WorkDrive used to run. But maybe there's actually an app around it as well. Anyway, we'll
It
play
looks
with
like they're
it.
also expanding. If we look up a little bit, they're expanding some of the functionality with the projects integration as well, which is great because there's a little bit of disconnect with the WorkDrive integration right now, where if I'm inside of my project and I assign a WorkDrive file to that project, it actually assigns an individual local copy of the file to the project. So if you make any edits there, it won't actually edit it back into WorkDrive. And it looks like they're tackling that, which is that's going to be great.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
almost my favorite thing out of this update.
Well, there's so much around what's happening with WorkDrive and now what we can do with Delusion WorkDrive and basically grabbing files, putting them in certain places, attaching them, and then that real-time collaboration ability and all the stuff. I mean, we're just more and more looking at all of the possibilities around using WorkDrive over something else just because of the deep integration it has.
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be beautiful, man.
Massive storage size doesn't hurt either.
I know they
God
can
knows
definitely
you
give
get
you a
in
lot,
there, man. Yeah,
you sure do. All right, and that takes us to our read of the week. I just love this. 6 steps to successful customer onboarding, a critical customer experience activity that most companies fail. And this basically is around the 2020 National Customer Rage Survey. So I didn't know there was a customer rage survey. But a good article. I really struggled. I mean, I will tell you, I must have read through 20 or 30 things. I'm like, nah, it's not really worth it. And it got me to think a lot more about our customer onboarding and, our initial session. And it's all about laying out those expectations and doing it all correctly. And where do things kind of fail? Where do they fall apart at the end of the day, right? Because if you don't onboard correctly, then you're setting bad expectations. They don't know what they're looking for or what they should be expecting. You can get you off on the wrong foot. Anyway, this is an extremely detailed article. Goes on and on, gives you your 6 steps for customer onboarding. I mean, a lot of these, when they say, hey, it's 6 steps for customer onboarding, they just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's a lot of preamble to this, a lot of interesting data that goes into it as well. And I think a really good article, really, really well worth it. I was really, really happy to read it. And not a short read, but I think one that will be worth taking your time.
Yeah, like one of the points that they highlight is, motivating willingness to learn, with any new customer who's going to be using your product or using your service, right? And they have kind of a couple different tips on how you might motivate some of that, because really whenever you're selling something, they're probably going to have to change their process or change something about what they're doing in order to maximize the value from your product. And that's always going to involve learning.
Yeah.
Right. So they kind of put a couple tips anywhere from the workflow, the onboarding to, verbal things and, making it fun or interesting. So I think it's a good read.
Yeah, it is. It is. And that also led me to the customer care measurement and consulting group, which is, by the way, the author of this article is he works for this. He's an executive director over here, and the actual 2020 National Customer Rate Study. So it's got a crazy infographic that kind of covers everything. And this looks like, I think this is going to be an interesting site for us to look for additional reads. I'm always trying to find, places where they're really thinking about sales and marketing and the best things to do and best practices and those kind of things. And looks like we've got one here. They don't seem to post a lot, but when they do, they look pretty good. So you might want to check out customercaremc.com. That's pretty decent as well. Speaking of decent reads, we are picking up the game here over at Zoho, or Zenata, I should say. And on our blog, we've got one here, nice 5 quick tips for Zoho Social. And I think this is a relatively short read, but a good, nice detailed read on how to really get the most out of Zoho Social. We use it for managing all of our social media. It's gotten better and better and better. So some nice tips there. And then, wow, we got a HubSpot worthy blog we're getting in here. This is how to maximize the life cycle of your marketing campaigns, and super, super detailed. the overall life cycle from growth to maturity to decline, running through the entire thing. And well worth taking your time to read this as you are building out your overall marketing campaigns, building out your list. A lot of good things to think about here as you go through and do that. All right. And so, Tyler, that brings us to our application of the week, which is one you chose this week.
Yes, this is one that I've been using for a little while now, basically since we've rolled out Zoho projects internally. And it's just a really slick little plugin for projects that you can use inside of Gmail. And basically what it's going to do, right, when you install this, it adds, like most Gmail plugins do, a little tab on the right-hand side of the screen. You're able to pop that out when you actually have an email open and just drop in a task into any project just directly from the email. A couple nice things about it is the subject line automatically becomes the task name, which you can edit before you actually submit it. And then the whole body of the email becomes the task description, which of course you can edit as well. But other than that, it gives you all of the choices. You can go into a specific project and then a task list in that project. You can assign an owner, a due date, a priority, really all those fields that you need to assign for a new task just directly through an email.
Yeah, this is, very similar to the CRM integration and several of the other integrations they have. They're extremely well done. You do get all of these now kind of on steroids in Zoho Mail because of the direct little e-widget integration they have. And I think in some cases they were going from what they did for Gmail and going to Zoho Mail, and now we're kind of going the other direction with some of them. But they definitely keep up with both of them, and well worth taking a look at. This is something though that is it's a Google Workplace add-on. So really when you're doing this, you're installing it. You want to install it for your entire domain, and you do it from your admin console. But well worth it. Any other things on this, that you love about it, or just general easy
it's
use?
Just simple, easy to use. You just take an email, turn it into a task. Because just, as much as we always want things to come through, a desk or, tasks coming from meetings where we're charting them down directly, you're always going to have people emailing you things that need to be done. And this is just a super easy way to organize those into your projects.
And you're Gmail forever because of sorted, aren't you? That's kind of it.
I'm a little stuck. I do love me some sorted. It's a little plugin that we use that turns your email into a Kanban board for those who may.
SORTD. So
Yep.
SORTD, it's nice. You basically can drop, it basically becomes your entire overall task board. You can easily add task, add emails to task. Yes, there are several other ways of doing it. One of the things you pointed out about that's so great though, is you can always just open the email directly from the task, where, a little more difficult to do in most of the others. And that brings us to our tip of the week, which is the last in our Zoho Desk beginner's guide. And this one was on basic automation. What things did we cover here? I can't remember.
We covered a few of the automations that we always like to put in. One example that we walked through here is just updating ticket status based on, who is responsible. So, if you respond to a ticket, we update it to pending or on hold. Once the customer responds, we update the status back to open, right? So that your agents can just see the tickets that are directly actionable. It's just a couple little automations like that are quick and easy to set up, and we cover them all in this video.
Yeah, so good stuff. Another 10-minute video. I think we ended up with 3 10-minute videos and a 7. What took us 2 hours. We're just sitting there brainstorming. So we get to do that again next Wednesday for our new beginners series that we'll launch for February. What are we going to do it on? Any idea?
I guess it'll be a surprise.
That's going to be it. All right. And that is going to wrap it up. If you have any questions or comments, head over to Zenata.com or CRMZen.com and drop us a line.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes as well as show notes with links to the stories we discussed today. As always, you can follow us on your favorite social media platform and subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.